Hey, good morning. We are on property at Paris Natural Farms, and today I want to point out a few things. It's the middle of summer. It's very hot here in Northeast Texas, and we want to point out some things that you're going to see in regards to your irrigation. Whether you've set your irrigation up or not, this is a good time to learn a few lessons on properly setting up and operating your watering systems. Number one, if we're thinking about the layout of your farm, I want you to think of your farm in zones. I'm surrounded by lettuce and mustard greens and all different kinds of Salanova lettuce over here. That means we have one zone for leafy greens. If we go across the way into the tomato hoop house, the irrigation looks much different, the timing is different, and we need to think about what is best for the plants, not just a blanket, hey, it's hot, let's just turn the water on willy-nilly and let it run. We need to think about temperature control, humidity control, and what is best for the plant as it does its uptake. You'll see behind me that we have some overhead irrigation, but they're also doing deep water irrigation, especially on the leafy greens and the field crops, so that the water is not just spraying about, it's not evaporating, and it's hitting those nice deep root zones so the plant has plenty of water to uptake throughout the day. And while we're talking about different zones, we need to also think about setting up those timers differently. We can't run all the water all at the same time, and that's a good way to have, hey, this timer's going to go off here, then it's going to go off here, and we're keeping that constant pressure for all of the zones involved. Vine crops in a hoop house really benefit from deep, infrequent watering. I like to think of this in two ways. One, if you overwater, that tends to have your fruit split, and that's no good for anybody. Number two, if we want to give the plant just a little bit of a drink of water every single day so we don't dry out, I like to think of it like this. 2 hours after the sun comes up, 2 hours before the sun comes down. That means that the vine is still getting heat, but it's just a little bit thirsty in the morning. And then as the sun goes down, it's getting that last little drink before the plant goes to sleep. Now, what happens overnight is the plant is going to start uptaking more water than it actually does during the day. And because we're not transpiring enough water out, that tends to go to the fruit for storage, because the whole purpose of a tomato plant is to store water for the vine itself. And this excess of fluid inside the tomato overnight is what causes the splits. So about once a week, I like to get in here and really do a deep water, but it doesn't take that much. So again, vine crops, to avoid splits, 2 hours after the sun comes up, 2 hours before the sun comes down, and about once, maybe twice a week in the summer, let's give that deep water. Now, the other thing you want to avoid is don't water so much that we're building up our humidity inside the hoop house. That's going to cause problems for both cucumbers and tomatoes with a little bit of fungal issues that tend to happen in higher humidities. Different from a vine crop, if we're back inside of the lettuce house, we're thinking about frequent, shallow watering throughout the day. We don't ever want the ground to fully dry out, but we also don't want the roots standing water. So a few minutes a day, multiple times a day. I also don't recommend watering at night because, again, that's going to build up humidity. That's going to cause other problems. But as the sun's coming up, a couple of times throughout the morning, a couple of times throughout the afternoon, and one more a couple of hours before everything gets put to bed for the night, that means that this lettuce is getting a constant drink. I like to think about it like this. Tomatoes are the camel of the vegetable world, in which they like a lot of water all at once every now and then, but the lettuce is more like humans in that we like a little bit of a drink all day long, especially in a hotter environment. Water tips for your field crops is drip irrigation right at the root zone. Make sure that that root ball is getting all the water it needs. As the water goes down into the soil, it's going to spread out naturally, and that's usually going to mimic the root ball of the plant. The other thing you can do is we have landscape fabric here, but if you don't have that and you don't have something to kind of retain that moisture from evaporating, please use some mulch, but don't mulch right up to the crop. Putting mulch right up against a plant is a good way to have that plant rot out, and it's not good for it. But just consider a moat or a little ring real close to the base, about 6 inches away from the stalk of the plant itself would be great. Just something to help keep that moisture down if you're not using landscape fabric. When it comes time to watering your flowers, you're going to see that on the package, every single flower is going to give you a water table of the conditions that the flower likes. Bundle those up before you plant. So maybe on one side of the flower plot, you have all your super moist loving plants, versus on the other side, you can have your plants that don't require as much water. But in general, and you really have to read the package, but in general, you really like a nice, even, consistent watering throughout the day so those plants aren't stressed out and overwatered and stressed out and overwatered. We need to keep flowers consistent. When it comes to herbs, this is probably one of the more difficult things to time out. Herbs typically like a super dry soil and actually thrive in a kind of a more arid and rougher environment. That's not universal for all herbs, so please check the packaging. Basil, oregano, thyme, think anything Mediterranean flavor likes that arid environment. As you're going throughout the day, check with your hands or a moisture meter to make sure that you're not too dry, but that you're not too wet either. And I think over the course of a season, you're really going to dial that in, put it in your notes, so next season you know how to set up your irrigation, whether or not you're going to put a timer, whether or not you're going to do it every single day. A lot of that's going to depend on the soil composition of wherever you're going to be planting. It also may change with the container versus out here in a hoop house like this. A couple of time-saving strategies when it comes to watering is using timers, setting those up properly on day one or as you're getting your infrastructure set up. A couple of schools of thought. I'm a big advocate for mechanical timers over digital timers. I think they do a much better job. Some of the mechanical timers plug directly in and you're not having to worry about batteries. The digital readout always, for me, seems to go out after a little bit of time, and I just had better luck with the dials that you turn and you can manually pull out tabs to set the zones. As you're doing your morning inspections, please check for any damage, especially right after any maintenance like trimming, mowing, tilling, anything that you have to do where the dirt is likely to be disturbed. That's more often than not the time that an elbow or a T gets disconnected or a line gets cut. On that, have a repair kit ready to go at all times with the most common parts. As you're supplying your hoop house or your field crops with irrigation, always buy 10 or 20% extra. I promise by the end of the season, you're going to get into it and have to use it anyway. Also, schedule in some time to flush the lines occasionally. The drip irrigation the Boots Farmer sells has an anti-siphon situation where it doesn't pull dirt back into the lines, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen on occasion, especially after a repair or an install. Open up the end of the line, run water through it. The pressure allows all the dirt and debris to go out the ends and not out the emitters. And this is just a good way to keep the lines clean and unclogged. And the other thing you'll see a lot of times if you're driving around the city and it's raining, sometime a commercial property will still have the water going, and what a waste. We also need to make those same seasonal adjustments. If it's going to be raining a lot, it may be time to shut down the water for a couple of days and let your fields dry out, especially let your hoop house dry out so it's not causing too much humidity with all of that humidity that's in the air. And let's keep everything nice and dry. Let's keep your roots clean, and especially let's save some water. So when it comes time to watering your plants, it's always best to check your seed package before you plant anything. Set up your farm in different zones. Consider watering timers. Use landscape fabric or mulch to retain that moisture. And always pay attention, especially inside of hoop houses, to your humidity. By watering properly, you're going to have nice, healthy plants that can resist the high temperatures. They're uptaking and releasing water properly. And if we think about, especially with tomatoes, that you can actually water too much and split the fruit, hopefully that'll A, save you a little bit of money in watering, but B, give you the best fruit for market. So water things differently, water it in zones, and always check for leaks. There's always going to be a leak somewhere on the farm. It's your job as the farm owner to protect the plants and protect your water bill from those. If you have any comments, there's no way we could have handled everything in this short video. Please list your favorite tools or things that you like to do whenever you're checking your water down below. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.